The Biden administration has announced that they offered the Russian government a prisoner exchange. So obviously, I'm sure you know what this means, but what happens between two governments when one government has, is holding captive a citizen of the other country, and the same for that country, they'll exchange either prisoner to get them back to their home countries. But a lot of controversy has come up with this announcement. And to kind of give you without any names or details, the broad summary of why is the person that we now have in captivity, who is Russian, is a much bigger criminal offender and a much bigger threat than the people they have in captivity. Now, the lives of the two people that the Russian government is holding are so important, so valuable, and we want to get them back, of course. But what people are upset about and debating over, so I'll be interested to hear where you guys land on this, is do we want to set a precedent where you can just, on kind of phony charges, arrest an American citizen, knowing that by doing that, you now have the option of trading a citizen who didn't do anything horrible, isn't this big master criminal or a big spy or something, and then trade it for someone who is a big master criminal who really was threatening the United States. So it could set a scary precedent, and that's kind of what's being debated, because of course the families and all of us want these two Americans who, again, they were not doing some crazy crimes. They were not a threat to Russia, but the Russian government kind of, according to the United States government, got them on phony charges, or at least went after them for the purpose of probably doing something like this, having some leverage against the United States. So we'll read about the specifics, but that's kind of the overview. So let's dive in. Victor Bout, one of the world's most notorious arms dealers, could be the key to a possible deal with Moscow to win the freedom of basketball star Brittany Griner and another American, Paul Whelan, according to an exclusive CNN report. So my base level, gut response to this is positive. I'm super glad that this WNBA star and Paul Whelan are able, and I might be pronouncing the names incorrectly, but are able to come home and be safe, and they were not getting enough attention beforehand. So that's amazing. I just kind of wanted to give you the context of why this is such a groundbreaking announcement. Continuing on, a substantial offer was made to Moscow in June, according to three sources. President Joe Biden personally signed off on it. To put it mildly, this is a stunning development. The Kremlin has yet to respond, but if the swap goes ahead, it could transform perceptions of how the U.S. deals with governments who detain its citizens overseas. So this is kind of what I was alluding to, making American travelers more tempting targets. It would also be an act of great humanity by Biden to bring Americans home from hellish Russian prisons. So it's kind of that, there's two aspects. You're setting a precedent where now Russian travelers who you could pretend did some crime and detain them for that are perfect kind of opportunities from the perspective of some of these more authoritarian governments to now have leverage over the United States, because we'll make trades that aren't equal in the level of criminal on either side or anywhere close to it. But on the other end, Biden's possibly going to successfully get these two people home safe. So tough. Okay, continuing. This is one of those problems with no right answer that leaders face. Freeing a prisoner like Bout is a risk. He's not only close to Russian intelligence, but could pose a future threat. He was convicted in 2011 of conspiracy to kill Americans, among other charges. A high-profile swap like this might also send a message to hostile governments and bandits around the world that the U.S. will cut deals to get people home, which is a thing that is done, but I get the point. Skipping forward, this particular individual that the Russian government wants back, massive arms dealer, conspiracy to kill Americans. So in contrast, the Americans that we're trying to get back is, quote, WNBA star Griner, who is on trial in Moscow, says she unintentionally took cannabis into Russia. That's what she's there for. She's not some threat to the Russian government. She unintentionally took cannabis into Russia. Whelan was arrested, so this is the other person, in 2018 and accused of spying. Washington contends that neither case has any merit and is highly critical of what it sees as the politicized Russian justice system. So as you can see, and I would not put it past Putin or the Russian government generally to completely fake or way hyperbolize the charges and the actions that they are charging these individuals on, but but it sounds like the WNBA star did have weed, but unintentionally brought it in, and they pretended like she's some big weed trafficker or something, and now using that small of a charge to hold her and use her as a pawn in kind of this game. So I'm glad these two Americans are, or at least have a better opportunity of getting home now, because the Biden administration has proposed this. Not clear on if it's going to go through yet. Interesting to see what the repercussions are on this with the precedent that it sets. And also interesting because there has not been significant communication between the American government and the Russian government since the war in Ukraine started. And so this will be the first time that there's more communication between the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, and their, equivalent in Russia. So all around interesting situation. I'm hoping the Americans do get home safe, but definitely understand why this is such a big deal and so controversial.